Hi everyone, welcome to Panthera's Paranormal Odyssey. This channel is for people who love all things paranormal. I will talk about topics such as hauntings, urban legends, cryptids, stories, and a whole lot more. There will be my own personal experiences along with viewer features. If you have a topic that you would like to recommend, just email me. I'd love to hear from you all, and my email address is just below. So let's start today's Odyssey. Today I have two stories about alien activity. Was it people or was it aliens? Doug Averill grew up as one of 8 boys on his parents' sprawling dude ranch, the Flathead Lake Lodge in rural Montana. As a teen, the Averill boys ran wild. We rode around as a little gang of cowboys, he remembers. They saddled up and head off to check out the cattle on the 3 giant tracts of land the family managed, which formed a triangle around some of the state's most remote rangelands. One summer in the 1960s, the brothers came across a ghastly sight. There, on the ground, were 3 dead cows neatly arranged in a circle. No obvious wounds were visible, but their reproductive organs had been removed. But there was never any blood. It was almost surgically removed, Averill remembers. During this decade, America was obsessed with aliens, and write-ups in the local newspapers posted that perhaps this was the work of extraterrestrials. People mused that aliens had taken the reproductive organs for testing. But one day, Averill and his friends came across a lance in their path. Attached to it was a cryptic note with a threatening message. That's when we thought, it's got to be people doing this, he says. Then things got really strange. Over the next few days, a series of odd events unfolded. First, the brothers stopped in at a local bar to grab a hamburger, leaving their horses in the back of a stock truck. The horses were packed in tightly, and the Averills were only gone for a few minutes. When they came back, the horse packed into the middle of the truck was mysteriously out with no signs of a struggle. We had no idea how they possibly could have gotten that horse unloaded without unloading all the other, he says. The next day, a new wrangler on the ranch fell off his horse and was badly injured. They'd all been riding together, but not a single other member of the crew saw the accident. It was the weirdest thing, Averill says. The man's injuries were so severe that he was left permanently disabled. Finally, the last terrible thing happened. An old camp cook drove out to meet the brothers and ride for a day. But when he arrived, the tailgate on his stock truck had somehow gone missing, even though it had been there when he loaded up. His horse, Betsy, had fallen out of the truck and had been dragged behind the vehicle for who knows how long. They had to put her down on the spot. To be honest, it just killed him to see what happened to Betsy. We probably should have put him down too, remembers Averill. Those 3 events were just boom, boom, boom. 3 things in a row that were so weird, all tied together because they were right after we saw that spear, he remembers. 3 things like the 3 dead cows left in that circle. Averill recently got a call about a downed bull, a buffalo. It was out in one of the most remote parts of his ranch. A neighbor had seen a pack of 16 wolves, and normally wolves don't bother buffalo, but 16 of them? I thought, well, maybe. He went to investigate. There, lying in the snow-covered field, was the bull, but there was no bullet holes or teeth marks or gashes on the corpse. Even stranger scavenging animals and birds hadn't touched it. Not even buzzards, which is really unusual, he says. One other thing that was amiss, its reproductive organs were gone, and there wasn't a single footprint in the snow around it or anything along the mile walk into the ranch from the nearest road. If you ask Gabriel whether he thinks he's dealing with aliens or humans, he will say that it's pretty sure that it's aliens. It just doesn't make sense that humans would be able to do this without any tracking. The Grinning Man. I can think of a lot of terrifying creatures, but this one, which has been closely associated with the Mothman, may be the most terrifying of all. Reported to be over 6 feet tall and dressed in a green and or blue metallic uniform. With a wide black belt, these creatures are reported to have small, beady black eyes, a dark complexion, and, of course, a large shark-like grin. They also have no ears or noses and are almost always seen at the same time as UFOs. This creature was first reported on the night of October 11th, 1966, by 2 teenagers in Elizabeth, New Jersey. They described the Grinning Man as the most hulking man they have ever seen and wasted no time running for their lives instead of investigating. When separated and interviewed a few days later, their descriptions were identical. At exactly the same time, 40 miles north of Elizabeth, near a DuPont explosives factory, a police officer and his wife saw what they described as a blurry white light as big as a car. They said it flew over the hills and vanished. 2 police officers on the other side of the hill saw it as well. They said it was so bright it blinded them when they stepped out of their patrol car to investigate. Keep in mind, the Mothman was also seen near the explosives plant near Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Less than a month later after this sighting, on November 2nd, 1966, sewing machine salesman Woodrow Derenberger had his eerie account. He was driving on Interstate 77 when a bizarre vehicle landed in the road in front of him with a loud crashing sound. He described it as an old-fashioned kerosene lamp chimney, flaring at both ends, narrowing into a small neck, then enlarging to a bulge in the center. As he stopped his truck, a hatch slid open and a tall, dark-skinned man climbed out of the strange vehicle. Derenberger described him as having slightly elongated eyes with a wide, creepy grin. He also described him as wearing a blue metallic uniform, which was shiny and glistening. He said the creature communicated with him telepathically. Derenberger said he was asked a series of questions, and then the creature identified itself as Indrid Cold and told Derenberger he would visit him again. It then took off in the spacecraft. Following this encounter, both Derenberger and several other residents from Point Pleasant claimed to have had encounters with Indrid Cold, although some of Derenberger's later claims would seem a bit outlandish with the information he said Indrid Cold gave him. The number of sightings were too numerous to ignore. There were also claims of 2 more grinning men named Demo Hassan and Carl Aldo. Of all the sightings reported, the Lilly family's claim is the most terrifying. This also happened during the Mothman uproar in Point Pleasant. Their daughter Linda ran screaming from her bedroom one night, told her mother a large, hulking man was in her room, grinning at her. He walked around her bed and stood over her, then disappeared, she said. The family also claimed to have seen blue, green, and red lights around the house and color-changing orbs with diamond-shaped windows. Sounds a lot like the New Jersey encounter, doesn't it? There were also several reports of a giant prowler with a fixed grin in Provincetown, Massachusetts during 1966 and 1967. There have been a few other reported encounters with the grinning man over the last 20 years. At least 3 of these have been released to the public. One, on December 3rd, 1979 in Italy, involved a night watchman who claimed that he was abducted by a grinning man. Another, in the 1980s, involved a Connecticut woman who claimed to have seen a grinning man. The third occurred in 2009 near Roswell, New Mexico. A man claimed to have seen a bald, grinning man who stood more than 6 feet tall and was wearing a sparkly green jacket. He didn't stop his car but drove by the grinning man on into town where he was told he just missed a UFO. All these sightings, like the Mothman, are just too much to brush off. It has been long suspected and suggested that the grinning man sightings in and around Point Pleasant are directly associated with the Mothman. Were the grinning men some sort of galactic enforcers trying to police the Mothman? Was the Mothman trying to warn us of the grinning man? All of this takes a Mothman legend way beyond just a mountain monster. Although many believe these two are different entities, one an alien and the other an urban legend, I believe that they are entwined through the history and there is at least some connection. I also believe the Mothman to be alien in nature rather than a monster which lived at the TNT area plant near Point Pleasant. The question is, what do you believe? Real or fake, monster or alien? It has to make you think the next time you see strange lights in the sky or your child claims to have seen a monster in his or her room. Could you be the next person to see one of these creatures? I hope everybody liked today's Odyssey. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. It's free and it really helps out. And remember, if you have a topic to recommend, please just email me. I'd love to hear from you all. The next time you squash a moth, just remember this story. Bye, y'all.